You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Day one of our Cabral HouseCalls. Each and every weekend, we do 2 days of answering our community's questions of people that have written in over the past couple of months. We will be starting back about December 19th, and we are catching up. Of course, we usually are about 6 weeks to 8 weeks behind, but nevertheless, we get to all of your questions. So I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you asking these questions. And of course, if you never want to wait that little delayed time response because we answer them in the order that they come in, always do feel free to ask that question over at cabralsupportgroup.com. If you're new to the show, on the weekends, I answer all things wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging, sometimes health coaching, sometimes fitness, you name it. I'm happy to give you my perspective, and it's something that I love to do. So instead of doing a big intro today, what I want to do is really answer as many questions as possible and try to progress forward to catch up to present day. So once again, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. And for all of today's questions, you can read along at stephencabral.com/1478. That is where all of the questions are written out. Head on over to stephencabral.com/1478. Okay. So let's dive in. The first question is from Sue. Sue is asking, "Hi, Dr. Cabral. I'm wondering if you can help me. I'm 62 and I have chronic pain in my hips and down my thighs. I'm also getting spasms down my right thigh. I find it hard to walk, especially after sitting down. I'm cleaning in a resort, which takes its toll also. I'm foam rolling, taking zinc, vitamin C, magnesium, B vitamins, iodine, vitamin D, and B12. Nothing seems to be helping. I've developed thin, crepey skin, which tears easily, and I have big red blotches appear when I knock myself. I have an oval type circle, which looks like a bruise, and it's itchy, which I've had for several years, and fungus in 2 of my nails. I also get corns at the bottom of my feet, occasionally, which my podiatrist said comes with the skin getting thin around the bone and aging. My osteopath recommends I get the Mora technique done. Do you know anything about this therapy? I would like to have tests done, but can only afford one thing at a time. Hope you can help. You are absolutely amazing with your knowledge, and thank you for sharing. Regards, Sue." Sue, thank you for writing in. I'd love to be able to help you, of course, to the best of my ability. And so the Mora technique is not something that I have any familiarity with or anything that I do at all. So I apologize, but I have no idea what the Mora technique is. M-O-R-A technique. Maybe it's something very common. I've just never heard of it. Could be fantastic. But again, I don't know. So let's look at first symptoms let's not talk about a lab test yet. But what happens is this: chronic pain in your hips and down your thighs. And you're getting spasms down your right thigh. It's hard to walk after sitting. Now, when I hear that, I say, okay, that's interesting. Could be, right now in my mind, I'm running through about a half a dozen things that it could be. Again, based on just running a large clinical practice and having overseen 250,000 appointments. And I only say that to you just to understand that we have a huge database of research, and I want to share that with you. So the first thing I think of is, okay, this person is on their feet a lot. They're cleaning in a resort. So right away, I'm thinking of a couple things. Impingement of one of the vertebrae on the discs in the spine. So no matter what I give you for nutritional supplements, no matter what I do, I need to pull that thorn out, the proverbial thorn, which means this: I need to make sure that there's no impingement on that disc that's creating something called piriformis syndrome. And I know you're doing some foam rolling, which is amazing, good for you. But what I want you to do is look for a really good chiropractor who doesn't just do adjustments of the spine, but also will do a postural assessment. We'll look at the length of your hamstring, the length of your psoas, your hip flexor muscles, the TFL, which is another hip flexor that almost no one talks about. And they will also do some soft tissue work with you. If it is an impingement, you will get tremendous benefit from that, okay? Really, really important. The second is this. You very well may be exposed to a number of toxins because you clean all day with resort cleaning products, which are potentially quite toxic. So the first thing I might recommend is a 21-day functional medicine detox. You can use ours over at equilibriumnutrition.com, or you can use whatever your functional medicine doctor recommends for you, or naturopath. I don't know who exactly that you're working with. Really important. Now, the third I want to share is this. If you were to choose one lab test, due to the fungal-based overgrowth on your nails and potentially low absorption of nutrients, I would ideally recommend the starter kits, okay? Because it's $100 more off if you combine the Candida, metabolic, and vitamins test with the minerals and metals test, because it'll look at heavy metals too. Now, would I love you to run an environmental toxicity test too? Of course. There's so many I'd love you to run. But the starter kit is where I would start, for sure. And for most people, if they can't do the big five, the starter kit is the next best. And if you could only choose one lab, though, it would be that Candida, metabolic, and vitamins-based test. Thank you, Sue, for writing in. Sue's up next again. Hey, Stephen, it's Sue again, referring to my other email about my chronic hip pain. I also have a very raspy tongue and dry lips, but plenty of saliva. My naturopath thinks it's low thyroid, hence why I'm on iodine, but it's not helping. Well, here's the thing. You can test to see if it's an iodine issue, right? You can run the heavy metal toxicity test, and you can actually see if you're low in iodine or not. You can run the stress, mood, and metabolism test, also called the thyroid adrenal hormone, to see if you are low thyroid. So you can easily rule that out. So I wouldn't just be supplementing if you don't need to supplement with that. Okay, but here's the next part. Your lips say a lot about your health. I'm about to actually do a podcast on this. I don't know exactly what's going on. You're taking B vitamins, so I don't know that it's a vitamin deficiency. Some people with very dry lips actually have a vitamin A toxicity. They are being exposed to vitamin A, or they're putting a vitamin A-based retinol product on their skin, and that can cause a toxicity. There are other people who, again, are simply exposed to chemicals and toxins or too much sun, and they get dry lips, or they're dehydrated. So there are plenty of reasons why, and I would look into that, those things that I just mentioned to you right now. All right, thank you for writing in. Canna is up next, C-A-N-N-A. Dr. Cabral, there's nothing worse than watching your child suffer. My child has PANDAS. He's 100% fine when he's not sick, and that seems to happen only when he's not at school. He's on your CBO protocol for children from a few months now. He still catches infections from other people very easily and flares up. We are fighting this monster for 9 months. Please give me some hope that he will get better. I will do anything in this world to cure him. Please help us. You know what? I appreciate you writing in, and I've actually answered this. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to answer your question. Of course that I am. But I would love you to go to stephencabral.com/podcast, and I would love everyone to do the same, because I'm going to give you the same answer, honestly, whether you wrote in a year ago or whether you're writing in today. So if we type in PANDAS, which is PANDAS, and I should probably let people know what that means. If you're not familiar, you haven't heard that before, PANDAS stands for Pediatric Autoimmune Neuropsychiatric Disorders associated with streptococcal infections. I know it's a mouthful, but basically what it means is a child was exposed to strep-based bacteria or infection, and now it's created a host of neurological issues within the body, mood changes, learning-based changes, sometimes tics and different things like that. We've worked with and have helped many, many children with PANS and PANDAS. So really important to look at this, and it never changes. Again, my recommendations never change. So we talked about this on episode 688, episode 695, episode 919, episode 953, and episode 961. I would love you to go back and listen to those shows as well, just because I do want to make sure we get through as many questions as possible and hopefully a database of as many new questions as possible too. But let's still give you some things to look at. Here's what we need to do. Okay, so when looking to overcome this imbalance within the body, we want to look at an organic acids test, which is our candida, metabolic, and vitamins test. We want to absolutely look at the bacteria and parasite stool test. And then we can look at an IgG food sensitivity test. All three of our gut-based tests. That's a big one. I would love if possible to run that minerals and metals test or a heavy metal toxicity test. Either one. A lot of data. We want a lot of data. If you're not able to run those labs because of finances, I totally get it. I understand. The children's CBO protocol, sometimes having to be done multiple times, as well as a reduced dose of the CBO finisher to seal up that gut wall. Why is that important? Because here's what happens. The susceptibility to infection comes from the immune system always being elevated because a lot of times there's gut permeability and bacteria as well as all sorts of different undigested proteins and food particles are moving into the bloodstream. The immune system's always on. The body becomes exhausted. It becomes much more susceptible to every virus and bacteria infection pathogen that's out there. So that is what we do. Again, really great results. Watching for food sensitivities, being careful with a lot of the foods such as grains and such as the common food sensitivities with eggs and gluten and dairy, and sometimes even just watching with higher FODMAP-based food. So again, we work on rebuilding the gut and really helping people from there. So besides the information I just gave you right there, the lab tests, which if you run them through equilibriumnutrition.com, you get my review, you get or the medical director's review, and you get a personalized wellness plan for your child. So hopefully that helps. All right, next question is from Vancity, I believe. Vancity. I feel pretty healthy, no issues on the blood test. Diet is good, and exercise. For some reason in the winter, cold at night especially, I have been experiencing the worst foot cramps to the point I woke up shouting in pain a few times. It happened in previous years, but not as much or harsh as this year. Can you please give me any tips? I try to keep my socks on during the winter, but they still cramp up even when slightly cold, I guess. I take a good multivitamin and magnesium since I've read magnesium deficiency can cause this. Thanks. You know what? You've done a lot of good research. Good. I'm proud of you. That's exactly what you want to look first is magnesium. Now you want to just make sure, is your magnesium an absorbable form of magnesium? Is it a magnesium citrate? Or it is a magnesium glycinate or malate form. Those are all great. Lycinate's a great form. What we don't want is a magnesium carbonate or magnesium oxide specifically. Okay, so make sure you're switching that as needed. Also, make sure you're using a clinical dosage. Again, I can't diagnose, I can't cure, I can't treat. That's not within my scope of practice, and certainly not trying to give you medical advice over a podcast. But what I would say is this. Typically, you need a clinical-based dose. You may need to use the daily nutritional support in the morning, 1 capsule of full-spectrum magnesium at lunch, maybe 2 capsules of full-spectrum magnesium at dinner, and maybe a little bit of magnesium citrate before bed. Like you actually might need to get more magnesium into your system. So that could be important. Or I would recommend running the minerals and metals test to actually look at, could this be a shortage of both calcium and magnesium? Because you might need calcium as well as magnesium. Both of them help with the smooth muscle, relaxation, and contraction. So there's that. The second is, how's your thyroid functioning? I would love for you to run the stress, mood, and metabolism test, also called our thyroid adrenal hormone. And why do I want you to run that? If you have lower thyroid, it's going to be exacerbated during the colder weather because your circulation just isn't as great. Also, if you have higher levels of stress, higher cortisol, it will show in that same lab. And that vasoconstriction gets exacerbated during the cold because cold constricts blood flow as well. So hopefully that helps. Couple lab tests to recommend, looking at different types of magnesium, potentially using a calcium magnesium, and then I would also just make sure you get enough vitamin D as well. So that's a good place to start. All right. We are flying through these questions today. All right. Aaron's up next. Have been getting ads for Bloom test strips. It's a urinalysis test that you scan with an app on your phone. It tests for several specific markers, including some heavy metals and cortisol. I hope to be able to afford your test at some point, which look comprehensive and get professionally analyzed. In the meantime, would you be able to review this product and speak to its reliability? I'm curious if the results correlate to a hair tissue mineral analysis and saliva test that you recommend. All right. Thank you for writing in. I will never disparage companies like this. The work that they're doing is great. They're trying to move the industry forward. I like it. The validity, however, is not yet where I would like to see it as a functional medicine practitioner. Again, it's one person's opinion. I would not use this as clinical data in my practice. Why? Is because the marker that you want for cortisol is through saliva. Just like you don't want to know your thyroid levels through urine or saliva, you want to know your thyroid levels through blood, which is why when we test thyroid, we're testing blood. You don't figure out your vitamin D through saliva. You figure it out through blood, right? You don't figure out your waste markers for urine through saliva. You don't figure out your waste markers for vitamins and like yeast and candida through saliva. You figure it out through urine. So there's a different fluid in the body for what we want to test and what works best. And you're just never going to get it all through a urine-based test. Now, do I love a urinalysis-based dipstick? Yes, but that's different, right? That's very different. We use that in conventional medicine as well as natural medicine to look at leukocytes, to look at ketones, to look at proteins in the urine, to look at pH. All of that matters. So what I'd say is this: too early, in my opinion. Maybe in 5 years from now, it will be able to be better correlated and there'll be more to it. Just be careful of a lot of these. And again, I'm not saying anything bad about this company. What I'm saying is just in companies in general that hope to provide this really cheap solution to really important health-based questions, and without someone actually read your results and tell you what it's all about and give you that personalized wellness plan, I'm not there yet, okay? I'm not sold. I'm not there yet. Hopefully that helps. All right, let's get in one more question. Emily's up next. I was diagnosed with PCOS about 2 years ago after coming off birth control for 8 years. Started doing intermittent fasting about 10 months ago when I heard it was great for insulin resistance, although I'm unsure my PCOS is from insulin resistance. I recently had annual blood work done. Prior to wanting to do a 28-day detox, I was found to be hypothyroid, TSH at 5.9, normal T4, no antibodies. Could this be secondary to intermittent fasting or connected to an underlying condition also causing my PCOS? Wondering if both conditions could be tied to adrenal fatigue, working on my emotional stress with herbals and breathing, working on my physical stress by eating more nutritious foods and not intermittent fasting. All right, this is a really great question. So PCOS can be multifactorial. But typically it's affecting higher levels of testosterone, higher levels of blood sugar, higher levels of estrogen, lower levels of progesterone, and oftentimes higher levels of cortisol. Thyroid does not always play into PCOS, okay? So that's what we're looking at. Now, again, so here's the thing. When I recommend lab tests, please always feel free to run this with your local functional medicine doctor, your integrative health practitioner, anyone that you want. You do not have to run them through my company, Equilibrium Nutrition, where we supply these labs to people all over the world and you can do them right at home. You don't have to. But for someone like Emily, this one lab test is the game changer because you get to see how it's affecting your overall hormones. And if you have a normal menstrual cycle, you'll run it on days 19, 20, or 21 of your cycle. We'll look for estrogen dominance. We'll see if it's higher levels of testosterone. We'll see if you have high levels of cortisol. We'll see if you have high levels of cortisol at night and low levels in the morning. We'll see if it's your TSH is imbalanced because of your higher level of insulin in the morning or a higher level of hemoglobin A1C. We'll see if it has to do with low vitamin D. All of this is on one lab. I mean, it's absolutely incredible the data that you can get. And this kind of goes back to Aaron's question. No real lab can replicate that except a true functional medicine lab. Also keep in mind, these are not our labs. I have to sign off on these, or our medical director has to sign off on these because a doctor has to sign off on your labs. These are real labs, and they give you real data. They do not diagnose disease, but they do look at underlying root causes of things like a PCOS or other health-based conditions. So can't recommend that enough. I would love to also see a minerals and metals test, that hair tissue mineral analysis. And ideally, if possible, I'd love to see that organic acids test, also called the Candida metabolic and vitamins-based test, okay? So this will give you exactly what you need to do, all right? Now, let me help, though, answer your question. In terms of intermittent fasting, if you are fasting, everyone should be intermittent fasting. However, it's sometimes now become synonymous with 16 hours. Intermittent fasting is not specific to a time. Intermittent fasting means that you are going a longer period of time, overnight, ideally, with no food. And typically the minimum is 12 hours. And most of the time, the maximum is 16, but some people take it even further to 20 or 22 hours or whatever it might be. I don't recommend that, especially for most women that are more prone to estrogen dominance, lower thyroid, infertility, amenorrhea, etc. So what I would recommend is you can still do a 6 at night, 3 to 4 hours before bed, fast until 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, or maybe 8 in the morning as your body starts to get going. Then when you start to rev up with a little bit more stress, great, have your smoothie then. Have something that nourishes your body then. So I would absolutely do that. It is hard for me to tell you exactly what's going on at an underlying root cause level, what's going on with blood sugar, what's going on with exercise, because I don't have the data in front of me. I do have the data that says you have a higher TSH, but you have normal T4. You have no antibodies, which leads me to believe that you're converting more of your thyroid over to what's called reverse T3. And that happens because of stress, sometimes viruses, but that's stress in the body, sometimes gut issues, or sometimes heavy metals. And so again, these labs would say, which one of those is it? Let's work on reversing that as well. So hopefully that answered your question. Really great questions today. We answered a bunch, so I'm going to keep it at that for today. I appreciate you tuning in. And of course, tomorrow we'll be right back at it, answering more of our community's questions. Have a great rest of the weekend if you're listening to this on the weekend. And of course, if this was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could serve. Are you ready to heal yourself and then go on to heal others? If so, the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute can help you discover proven functional medicine protocols that blend the best of 7 different healing disciplines from around the world. I personally share with you the exact handouts and protocols I use in my private practice that enable people to get well, lose the weight, and live longer, stronger. I want to pass this information on to the next generation of health coaches, and that is exactly why I created IHP. We are the future of the health coaching industry, and the skills and knowledge you will learn will make you an in-demand certified health coach anywhere in the world. Although we have many medical professionals taking the IHP certifications, no experience is necessary, and half our members have no previous health certifications. At the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute, our motto is a health coach in every home. Our goal is that you take this knowledge and then share it with family, friends, loved ones, your community, or in a practice where you create a career you love and can be proud of. The global IHP community is filled with some of the most kind and caring people in the world, and we can't wait to welcome you into our world soon. For more information or to set up a discovery call with one of our IHP Health Coach graduates, simply head over to integrativehealthpractitioner.org.